Uh, Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It's an international Zoom meeting today. My name is Malkiel. I'm actually an electrical engineer. I was studying at the Technion in Haifa. But since October 7th, we are all here to the same in the same cause to defend our country, to help our soldiers in the digital front, which was even more abundant than the physical one. And what we did from the first day is to make a lot of materials, of Hasbara materials, of videos, and make interviews. But then we realized, people like me, like-minded people, that we are not experts in Hasbara. And what we actually need is a nice advice from people who know something about Hasbara. And those people, to our luck, were very, very, very close to us. So what we did is contact Joanna Landau and Ariel Halevi, who both are experts in Hasbara, and Gilad Newman, who is CEO of Dale Carnegie. And those three experts are actually helping us the whole time from the first week of October 7th. And what we do together is define a better way of digitally make an impact on minds of people about Israeli advocacy. Okay, maybe the definition is not precise, but Joanna will help me with that later. What we do here today is host, we do it every week. We usually do it in Hebrew, but we felt the need to make sessions also in English. What we do here today is interview Ella Kenan, who, just like me, I guess, was not doing Hasbara before October 7th, but unlike me, is very, very successful, and her message is heard all over the place, and not only in our echo chamber. So Joanna Landau will interview Ella Kenan, and later we will have a Q&A session. We only have 1 hour for that, so I will not take more time from you. I was Malkiel, and please, Joanna, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for spotlighting me. Okay, so what we're going to do, hi everyone, it's great to see you. It's great to speak in English. I've been doing this in Hebrew for quite a while, so it's lovely to have everybody here. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. And as Malkiel said, I will actually, I'll be doing a couple of things this session. First of all, I will show you a website that we've just relaunched, which will provide you with all the content and the data and sort of advice that you may need to be effective in your advocacy. So when we say Hasbara, probably most of you know, we mean Israel advocacy, explaining Israel's position, providing it the legitimacy it needs during a war to continue doing what it needs to be done. We know that we're up against Mount Everest, and it's okay. We are going to succeed as long as we do it together. But we do need some guidance. And so some of us have not been in the field at all, and some of us have been. This website is to provide anybody who is not familiar with the sort of professional aspects of how to do effective advocacy some help. So I'll show that to you in a second. And then I'll have 2-3 questions maximum with Ella, just to sort of lay down the groundwork, and then we'll open it to a conversation. We will aim to end at exactly 1 p.m. New York time, 8 p.m. Israel time. But if Ella has the energy and anybody else still has questions, then we will continue. Okay, so just to set the scene, we talk a lot about the different generations, and we're very concerned about Gen Z. I think that's something that we all need to say, and anybody, a lot of you have not, this is the first time you're joining, but one of the things that I've been trying to show is that, yes, we have a major problem with Gen Z, but actually we have a lot less of a problem with the older age groups, and they're the ones who are actually helping us and helping Biden and helping Sunak in the UK and Schulz in Germany and so on to continue supporting Israel. And we should be investing a lot of energy, just as much, or at least as much, as we do in trying to connect the next generation and make sure that they're on our side, just because they're lower hanging fruits. But in order to create a better understanding of the topic, I want to provide you with an understanding of what I say when I mean Gen Z. Okay, and I'm just going to move myself a second. 1 second, excuse me a sec. I'm down here. Hello. So what I'm showing you here is basically the, oh, is it flipped? Can you see this properly? Is it, it's good. Okay. So what I'm showing you here is basically the age group. So we talk about boomers and we talk about Gen Z and we talk about millennials, but it's kind of very fluid. And I want to make sure that everybody understands, mainly because I just turned 50 and I'm part of Gen X and people are calling me boomers and I'm incredibly offended. And the boomers shouldn't be called the great generation because that's people who are older than them and everybody's got a mishmash of things. So I just want to make sure that we all understand where we're at. So boomers right now are people who were born in the 40s and 50s, anybody above the age of 70, pretty much. The numbers are not exact, okay? It doesn't really matter, but this is basically the breakdown. So boomers are above the age of 70. Every generation is defined by a major event that happened by the time when they were 6 years old, okay? Nobody remembers anything before they're 6 years old. The big thing that happened after you were 6 years old, that defined a lot of your life going ahead. So, of course, you can imagine coming out of the war. The Second World War is a big definer of the baby boomer generation, hence the name baby boomers and so on. Gen X is the generation that came after that. That's my generation, approximately between the ages of 44, 45, and 70. Okay. Falling of the Berlin Wall, all these different things that happen, AIDS, think about all these different things that happened during that time. Gen Y, who we also call millennials, they are the me generation from the picture of the Time magazine from 2016. That was when generations started to become interesting because there was a massive shift between boomers and Gen X and Gen Y. And that is basically because of the introduction of social media and the way the whole world became globalized and hyper-connected. So they are in their late 20s, early 40s, okay? That is millennials, okay? Gen Zers are between around the age, by the way, millennials is 9/11, was a major event in their lives. The 2008 mortgage crisis, major event in their lives, defined how they viewed the world, so on. Gen Z are the ones that we are very worried about. They come under the 18 to 24-year-olds that we see in a lot of the polls, but a lot of them are much younger, okay? So they're the younger, the 10-year-olds all the way up to 27. That's Gen Zers. And then there's a new generation, the ABC's finished, we're back to Alpha. So the Alpha generation, the really young kids, okay? Gen Z were defined, of course, some of them, depending on the age, by COVID, and so on and so forth, polarization, all these different things that are happening. So that was very important for you to see, because we're going to be talking about that today, and we talk about it a lot. Now I want to show you the website. The website is called Hasbara Toolbox, Hasbara Toolbox, .com. Okay, we're going to paste that for you here. And this is what it looks like, because as we know, October 7th did really change everything. And what we want to try and provide you with is how to be effective, okay? So what we've defined ourselves, this is the Command Center for Effective Israel Advocacy, okay? You can be an advocate, but you may not be effective, and there's no point in us arguing with people if we're not going to change and move the needle, all right? So this is what we're really interested in. I'm just going to show you very briefly the way it's set up. The homepage has a sort of what's trending today that you can go. I'll show you in a minute all the different things that are trending. You can go into there and take a look every day. Once you've seen how the website works, if you want to take a look, that will be your go-to place. You can sign up here to the newsletter. Please do. We'll be sending a weekly newsletter. Here we show sort of the latest poll. This, for example, is a poll actually from the UK. There might be little bugs in the website, so let us know if you see them. This is a poll that each time we're going to look at polls that say who's more supportive to Israel, more supportive or sympathetic to the Palestinians, who says neither, who says both. This is in the UK as an example, so you can always see that, the latest one. This will take you to tactics and ideas and concepts of persuasion and influence. That's Ariel Alevi that Malkiel talked to you about. That's his speciality, and Gilad from the Dale Carnegie Institute Israel. That's all the soft skills of how to be effective in the way that we influence people. That's the tactics. Sorry. This one was strategy. I'll show you that in a minute. That's actually my area. And then there's Ask the Experts, which is where you can find all of the content that we are filming in these sessions, and we cut them up into little Q&A pieces as well. Okay, at the end, there's just, who we are. And I'll show you very quickly. So the strategy is what I speak about sort of every so often. I try to remind everyone that, two major things happened on October 7th, that Israel reclaimed the victim narrative, and the world leaders stood by Israel's side. Those two things haven't happened since the establishment of the State of Israel. We need to pay attention because that changes the whole way we do advocacy for Israel. Okay, but things change very rapidly. And so we've got a different objective, a different target audience, and a different key message. We will be updating this. I believe that we don't need to update key messages. We need to update talking points, but not key messages. But you can find it all in here. Okay, so if you need any information about that, you can find it there. And then you can discover more by going into the other areas. So the perception is basically all the different polls, right? So I look at the polls, I have a Google alert, so I get the polls, I take a look, and then I go through each poll and I review it. And basically you go into, this is the Harvard Katz Harris, for example. You go into each one, you will find an introduction, you'll find key findings if you are bored and feel like doing stuff like I enjoy doing, which is really weird. But if you don't want to, you just go straight to the conclusions, which we're actually going to put up at the top. So now we understand what's being said. How does that affect our messaging? Okay, that's the polls. The area of the tactics provides you with, this is a great, in under 35 minutes, you can learn, this is something that we recorded, Ariel and I, right after Operation Guardian of the Walls in 2021. The principles of persuasion, okay? How you do persuasion, what you need to know, all sorts of different things. Watch it, it's really short videos, and you've got like a really nice set of tactics to use. And we have some practical guidance. These are some things that, which hashtags to use, do's and don'ts. What kind of advocate are you? Some people want to spend all day, some people don't, so on and so forth. You're welcome to read it. And as I said, the last part is the Ask the Experts. You get sort of short answers. You can filter them according to the category, or you can look at the full sessions, also filtered according to category based on the people that we have these sessions with, okay? But when you come from, the first or second time you've looked at the website, just go to latest news and stories. You get it all in here in one go, and it takes you to wherever you need to go, okay? So that's the website. And I don't want to waste any more energy on that because it's 15 minutes already and we're very conscious of time. So now I'm going to move to talking to Ella, who is the reason why we all convened here today. Very excited to see everyone. So welcome, Ella. Shalom.
Shalom. Thank you so much for inviting me. Hello, everyone. Thank you.
So as we're going to mute everyone for right now, and then afterwards, after I ask a couple of questions, then we'll open it, as I said, and then we'll sort of let people ask questions. You can put questions in the chat. Malkiel, I think that just to make it faster, I'll pick which questions, unless, people, if I might ask someone to open a mic and so on. So we're going to start with, I want to try and make it slightly more interesting. Most of the people in Israel are very familiar with Ella, okay? She's like a star, okay? Very, but she really is doing a great job. And what's very interesting is that she doesn't come from the world of Hasbara. And just like me and anybody who's in the world of Hasbara, we all hate the word Hasbara. We don't think it's the right way to go about it. And Ella is going to explain why. So what I'd like Ella to do, just to give us sort of a basic understanding for those of you who don't know her, like, how do you come into this and how are you doing things differently?
Okay, great. So hello, everyone. So prior to October 7th, I was working in the digital marketing field here in Israel. So my expertise is in social media, but also from the back end of how it works. But I also have a travel blog for the past 8 years, and it quite developed over the years. And I started working in the past 4 years, 4 or 5 years with tourism boards from around the world. So I worked with more than 20 tourism boards on the branding of the destinations that they want to market. So I traveled to a bit less than 80 countries around the world, all continents, and that was a really nice life. And then October 7th, I was in Israel when it happened. And then on October 8th, I go into my Twitter account and Instagram accounts, and I see two things. I see that people are starting already on October 8th to to deny that the massacre ever happened, and that if it did happen, then it was the IDF. It was Israel doing that to its own citizens. Now, they did that while on Telegram, they've sent videos of them doing the massacre. That's amazing. And then I see other voices, especially in the West, of Western people in Western countries saying, look, it may have been a massacre, but it was a justified resistance. And those were the two most prevalent voices I've seen on social media on October 8th. And then I understood that we're in for a problem, and we're less than 24 hours after the event, and the event is still occurring on October 8th in Israel. We still hadn't have all the control in the south of Israel. So what I've suggested is, I had a social media following, obviously. So I suggested
How many
a narrative.
how many followers did you have on Instagram before this all started?
About 85,000 before the war. Yeah.
Now you
And
have
112, something like that. Yeah. That I like about 8,000 people left me, unfollowed me as I started posting about Israel, because I had followers from all around the world. And then I got I got a few more. So what happened is, so I suggested a narrative saying, look, if we'll use Hamas is ISIS as a narrative, we have, a one-time chance to set an agenda for once. Us Israelis, we wake up each morning for the past, 20 years, and we see what the Palestinians are saying about us. Like, for example, Israel is an apartheid state. And then Hasbara is saying, okay, so let's explain why Israel isn't an apartheid state. And this is how we act in this world. And I think that it's too late, because they've already set the agenda by that point. So by suggesting to set the narrative and the agenda for Hamas's ISIS on social media, we could have a chance of winning that. And I did some really small instructions on how to work with social media and how to increase the chances of us being, going viral. And it worked. And in a really short time, it became viral around the world. And it really did set a narrative. And we've seen that, for example, on October 8th, if we're circling back to October 8th, we know Abu Obaida, which is the spokesman of Hamas. He went out and took out a message that said that if Israel will start bombing Gaza with the Air Force, then each hour that will pass, they will execute another hostage. And they never did that. And he never repeated that again, because that was too close to ISIS. And we also have Telegram groups of Hamas in which we see a Hamas terrorist talking about the fact that this branding is really doing harm to Hamas, because for them, they love the brand of freedom fighters. And there's many more examples that we've seen. And that's an example on how you set the narrative. Now, 4 months later, I have a small team, and that's what we're doing 24/7, working on social media. We have communities of tens of thousands of people from around the world that help us go viral and help us set really small wins, either low-hanging fruits or more difficult ones, that they all come together to create an image, influence, and to make us look like, I think you say it in English, you punch way above your weight, right?
Right.
So something of that sort. And we've already passed the 500 million views on social media from 3 accounts, all organic with $0 US. So yeah, that's a bit about what
Amazing.
we've been doing.
I remember when we spoke, because we've been speaking quite a lot these last few months, and you told me something which I thought was very like, what's your real impetus for doing this? What's your real, because you said, you know, I don't like arguing with people, but if I need to, I'm going to. And you spoke about your grandparents, and I thought that was a really nice thing to share here with the group.
Yeah, so my maternal grandparents were founding members of Kibbutz Kfar Aza after the Independence War. And that's where my mom was born. And, you know, I grew up on these stories that after the Independence War, Israel, you know, those were the internationally recognized borders of Israel. And Israel sent these people to build these kibbutzes on the border. And, you know, they always told me it was empty of land. These were internationally recognized borders. And we've always tried to be good with them, but they always try to infiltrate and kill and loot. And you know what? That was a bad time, but we did what we had to do for you to have a better life. And then when I look at it, I did have a better life in that sense, that I didn't needed to sacrifice what my grandparents did 75 years ago. But then when we're looking on October 7th, we got back to a very similar point, you know, even worse one. And I think that it is my duty to do things that maybe don't feel good, but they do good. And it has some sacrifice into it, but if that's what is needed for me to do in order for the generations that follow to have a better life, then I'm willing to pay that price, because this is the same price that my grandparents were willing to pay. So, you know, I'm just a continuing generation of the same people.
No, it's amazing. And sorry if you hear any noise from my dogs. Oh, they ran off quietly. So tell me, what is it that you do? Can you give us an example of something that you did? And like, take us behind the scenes of how you and your team, I think you have about 10 people, how they consist of, you know, how do you do what you do? Because there are lots of influencers out there doing, a lot of them are the ones who like recording people in the streets and doing all sorts of things like that, speaking at events, whatever. You do things slightly differently. Tell us what you do, and then afterwards we'll talk about maybe what we can learn from you.
Okay, great. So we do create content, but we also scour the web and we're looking for opportunities. When I'm talking about opportunities are things that, you know, anti-Semitic content, fake news, things that, you know, the problem with advocacy is that we're trying to solve it with facts. Now, don't get me wrong, the truth is super relevant, and I'm not offering posting fake news, of course not, but facts have no meaning when it comes to setting the tone on social media and people's opinions. What matters is identity. And what we're trying to do is trying to penetrate people's identity and make them think or ask questions. Or sometimes we know that there are people that get a lot of exposure that are anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic, and we won't convince them, but we could use their, you know, exposure in order to give context or to ride their, you know, their viral wave. And what we're doing is trying to find accounts or content that is very anti-Israeli and is already working, is already got getting a lot of exposure. I won't, chase somebody with 600 followers that, wrote something that isn't interesting. I don't want to give them the exposure that they don't deserve. But things that already were
successful. There a second, sorry, just for the audience. One of the we often strategically we recommend not to go after the
exactly.
headings, okay. We brought Ella on today. I usually wouldn't give the stage to someone who says the opposite of what we say, but Ella does it in a really, really smart way. So this is why it's important to hear what she has to say. And what she said, one thing for everybody to know is that if you're going to go against somebody who is very anti, if the post itself is very anti-Israel, if you respond to it, then you will create virality for that post. You will help it go viral because the algorithm will think that if there's a conversation, then it's worth passing it on to other people as well. The one exception to that rule where you can be active, even though it's a very negative post, is when it's already gone viral. We would define that as 1,000 comments, okay? Not even likes, but 1,000 comments. Then you can see it's usually very big people that have a presence. If it's already gone viral, now we can start doing something, because now it's almost like being in a classroom and you're calling on the one person who's being very, very negative, but you know that everybody else is watching, and that's what we're going for. So give us an example of when you did that.
So we're doing that all the time with big accounts that we give context or we refute their claims, and we sometimes even ridicule them, making them look very liars or, very stupid in the way that they present things. And then we give our community the links to that, and they support us. And when people give us a big amount of likes, maybe even more than the original post got, then that means that everyone that will see the post on their feed will also see my comment. So that makes a lot of people, especially big accounts, that's embarrassing for them. And that makes a lot of accounts either delete the content or, maybe posting something new that, is more accurate and, just setting the facts straight. And also, it's a message to everyone, because if they already, as Joanna said, they already posted something and I'm refuting that, or I'm making them look ridiculous, or I'm giving context. Mind you, 95% of the people on social media are not engaged in the conversation. There's just, silent watchers, and they see the bigger picture and they see a fuller picture. And that's something that we're doing. And that's about changing consciousness. Now, more things that we do is that we target in certain instances people. As I said, it's not what I like to do. It's not how I engage in relationships day to day. But war is war. For example, for the past 2 weeks, there's an organization called Hostage Aid Worldwide. It's a pretty renowned human rights organization with a very impressive board in terms of people in the human rights industry, if you can call it, in this world. And they put out a 2023 summary of all hostages around the world. And when we got to our, Israel ones, they didn't mention the Israelis. They only mentioned Israelis with dual citizenships. So, for example, if there was an Israeli that got kidnapped into Gaza and he has a British citizenship, then they counted him as a British person that got abducted into Gaza. But an Israeli without any citizenship at all, except for the Israeli one, wasn't mentioned. We also went over their social media platforms, and we've seen the same. For example, hostages that have German or Portuguese citizenships were mentioned as Portuguese and German that got abducted, but no word about the Israeli ones. And we've asked them, they are all Israelis. Some of them have dual citizenships, but they are all Israelis, except from, a few Nepalis and Thai workers. And they said that Israel is occupying Gaza. and it's part of Israel, and Israelis can go in and outside of Gaza all the time. So they don't count it as a hostage problem, because they don't count people that got abducted in their own country. And we told them, Israel isn't controlling Gaza since 2005. And Israelis can never go in and outside of Gaza. If any, there are Gazans that go into Israel for work, but it's not the other way around. And they said, okay, wow, good to hear, but goodbye. Like, we don't care. And that's when we started shaming them personally, people from the board, sending emails, shaming them online, really bad shaming with their faces, endless posts about them, putting a lot of pressure. As I said, there's to do good and there's to feel good. I don't think it's to feel good, but you know what? It's to do good, because 3 days after, they sent me a message, what do you want? And I told them, I just want a refined report, and I want you to mention the Israelis on social media. And they did. And then they went out and sent out a new report with all the names of all the Israelis, and they even added, and we're the only ones in the world that they did it for, how they are helping as a organization to Israeli hostages' families, and how are they promoting, a deal. And this looks like a small win, but if we have many of them all the time on a weekly basis, then we can create a different consciousness. And as I said, we punch way above our weight. We look more than what we are, because we're organized and we know how to work in the realm of social media. Social media isn't just a platform for me. It's my whole kingdom, and it has a different life. And I want to control the narrative. And I want people all around to know, the world to know, that when you talk about Jews and you say things that are not necessarily correct, or they're anti-Semitic, then there are repercussions to that. And if people think that it will make people hate us, then, I hate to break the news, they hate us already. So we might as well just do what we feel is good for us. So these are 2 examples. Yeah,
it's just examples, because there are more things that Ella does. I don't know if one of the things I loved, also it's quite amusing, she's quite funny as well. She enjoys annoying all those silly people holding up watermelons and pretending they're the Palestinian flag and stuff like that. And I don't know if you know the Norwegian guy who
oh wow, he
but,
closed his Instagram account because of me.
yeah. It's very funny. This Norwegian guy who's got standing has nominated UNRWA for the Nobel Prize, and Ella posts a picture of the guy with his name, and she said, I can't even pronounce his name, but it sort of says, on his name, why does whatever his name is hate Palestinians? Which, as you can imagine, this man does not want to see a picture of his face with why does this guy hate Palestinians, because that's his identity, right? His identity is that he doesn't hate Palestinians. But what he's doing actually is harming Palestinians by promoting UNRWA. And so these are when Elah's talking about going to the identity of the person, not explaining why they're wrong, not all that stuff doesn't help. But once you touch it, I found what I discovered, because I'm also obviously in the social media world, what I've discovered are 2 things. The identity piece is brilliant, and I love that Ella does that. The other thing that we know about social media is that it is an income source. And one of the reasons that we don't see people supporting Israel or Jewish people is a question of income. They will lose income. Scott Galloway recently, a very famous guy from marketing and technology, was interviewed and said he lost almost $1 million from standing up for Israel because people stopped downloading his content. But you know what? We got to do it, right? We can't sit silently, especially the Jewish people and anybody who is pro-Israel. One of the things that I think that people don't know, if any of you are on X, Twitter, there's something called community notes. Ella also tells people, like, write a community note, or add a like, whatever it is, to community notes on Twitter for certain people who post a post and it has a community note on it saying this isn't correct, here's the correct information. They don't make money from that post. So if we can connect this to making money as well, people won't behave in the way that they're behaving. It's been too easy for them. Okay. I'm cognizant of the time. So, and we see questions other than a bunch of people telling you you're brilliant, which is wonderful. And kudos for your excellent work. Can you tell us how you've got a bunch of platforms that people can follow you? If you can just at some point paste it in the comments so that we know Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, wherever you are. If you can do that. And I'm just going to go through the questions and see. Oh, Jackson Hinkle is my nemesis, Jessica says.
Yeah.
What do you have to say
about
Jackson Hinkle?
I think that, you know, if we're looking, we had a lot of successes and we still do, but if we're talking about things that we still haven't, you know, found the solutions for. So I think Jackson Hinkle is one of our problems. So Jackson Hinkle is a guy that only cares about money. Just to give you a background on how contradicting, he's one of the most biggest voices on Twitter at the moment. He got banned from Instagram. He gets banned even from TikTok all the time, YouTube, Twitch. But he's still very, very strong on X. Now, this guy is on one hand, he's saying, you know, I'm America first, pro-Trump, but then he calls himself a communist, and he's very pro-Russia and China. He admires Bashar al-Assad, you know, the head of Syria, and then he's very contradicting. He's very pro-Palestinian and very pro-Muslim, but then he has a very big history of being a white supremacist online. So all these things are very contradicting, right? So, and to conclude, I think he just cares about money. And he just wants to, you know, post things in order to make money. We did a calculation only from his X account, and he also has other accounts that you can put money in, but he makes about $40,000 a month only from posting fake news and hate about Israel. You know, it's not very smart. It's like posting a photo of 9/11 when one of the planes got crashed into the Twin Towers, and says, I think the Jews did it. Do you agree? And he gets millions and millions of likes for that, and he gets so much money just by saying these things. I think Israel is a terrorist state and should, you know, cease to exist. Do you agree? And everybody, you know, he just gets millions of likes.
We gotta find a way to deal with the guy.
Yes, and we've tried so many things. So our only success is that we got him so many community notes that even him, you know, he cried about it online, that about 75% of his income, you know, was cut because of these community notes. So that was a partial success. I started a rumor a few weeks ago that he's a Mossad agent, so his followers will stop following him. Guys, you see, I'm getting creative because calling people anti-Semitic, nobody really cares if you call them anti-Semitic, unfortunately, in this world. So I'm doing exactly what Joanna just did. I'm attacking them by their norms, okay? The Norwegian guy, he doesn't care about Jews, but he can't, you know, in his identity, his friends can't know that, like, he couldn't be portrayed as somebody who hates Palestinians. So that's how I portray him. And Jackson Hinkle, his worst nightmare if he will be supporting Israel. Like, people will think he'll support Israel. So I'm calling him a Mossad agent. But it's still not really.
We can't win them all. It's all good.
We
need to try anything we can. Let's be Israeli about it as well. There's a question here from Lena. Is it a good strategy to shame the UN? Not only UNRWA, but the UN itself?
So we did a lot. We still do. We do a lot of shaming to the UN. But as I've learned, shaming organizations is not. It's working partially. What works, and I'm sorry, again, this is not how I run my day-to-day life, okay? But hurting the people themselves with names works much, much better. So saying, you know, the UN or UN women, oh, they're not doing their work, is not working. Like, I'll say, you know what, Antonio Gutierrez, he supports terror. And if you're
Or
doing a campaign,
naming
exactly,
board
naming
members
it,
of UN Women.
exactly, UN Women, the first, top 3 executives, their life is a nightmare on social media because of us, of course. And it took them 60 or 70 days to talk about the sexual violence against women on October 7th, and the one that is still occurring as we speak, when we have women hostages in Gaza that we know that are going through rape and maybe are pregnant. But it wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't shame them. And again, it's not nice, but we've been going through really not nice stuff ourselves, and I couldn't care less if it's nice or not. This is the price we have to pay for, they took the Jewish women's body and they said it's okay because it's a resistance. That's, dehumanizing Jewish women. So these people should pay a price for what they're saying. And you know what? These things won't stop on social media because people take this outside to protest, and this violence will continue on to the streets, and it will hurt the Jews, in the diaspora. So
I think if anybody knows that better than us, it's the people that are on this call.
Exactly.
Not in Israel. Exactly. That's one of the things that we Israelis don't experience, that the Jewish world is experiencing, and it's very, we can only say, obviously, you care a lot about what's going on over here, but we also
care about you.
To tell you that we're with you as well. Ella, there's Adi Vaknin is saying, can you provide 3 tips to become more useful in Hasbara? So we spoke about like going to the identity of the person, understanding the identity. So for example, I guess if it's, somebody in the LGBTQ community, it would be touching on something which is relating to their identity and something that they don't want to be considered, in the wrong place. We talked about community notes and things going after the sort of trying to stop them from making money and kind of embarrassing them a little bit, and not too aggressively because we don't want it to backfire, but
of course.
It works. Would you have a couple of tips?
I think that in terms of how you engage on social media, most people, not all of what I do is just, to fight on social media. I do have content that is for the quiet crowd, the ones that are swinging. And for them, I learned that asking questions and making them think and continue the conversation in their heads create a positive echo. And a lot of what I do is ask questions and not necessarily give statements. And I'll give an example, okay? For once, when I ask people, what would you prefer? Your daughter to be kidnapped by Hamas or murdered, getting killed by Hamas? What would you prefer? If you had to choose between the two, what would you prefer? And that is something that touches people, and they don't need to be Israeli or Jewish to do that. And then I ask them another question. And if she gets kidnapped alive, what are they doing to her? And I don't need to answer these questions. We are the biggest, we convince ourselves better than anybody else. That's why, it's difficult for people to change. So I put a lot of emphasis on asking questions and also touch shared values. That means I talk a lot about liberal values. I talk a lot about LGBTQ. I talk a lot about Ukraine and the fact that the vast majority of Ukrainians support Israel and Israel supports Ukraine. And, Israel is with Ukraine in this war and Russia is supporting the Palestinians. And that is something that for liberal people in the Western world, that's a big thing. They need to choose your axes. There are 2 ones. Are you in the liberal side or not? Because Israel is. And I want them to have this conversation or make them think in their own head. So this is another.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So Monica's saying, I want to start a PR movement. I want to train people that are older to get accounts and learn X, Twitter, and Instagram. Then we won't create content, but we want to help pro-Jewish influencers. There are millions of pro-Jewish older people around the world. We don't want to create content, but we want to push forward pro-Israel content. If I reach out later, can you help us with this?
Yes, of course. Once you, I don't know if I have the, the manpower to help you teach people how to use, but later on in terms of how to create a community or join our community in order to create this effect, I think that would be great, and I would love to connect with that. Yes, of course.
Okay, great. So we're going to put as I said, we'll put the information. I can see that Malkiel said that when we post the recording of the video, we'll put all the links in there, and then people can be in touch. I love what Jessica's saying. Let's make a donation to pro-Israel groups in Henkel's name.
Jackson Henkel's name.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Blah 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 blah. Any suggestions for slogans?
I have nothing that comes up to mind. It's a working process that we do all the time.
Again, it's our way of thinking, right? They've got from the river to the sea. Now we have to have our own. But again, that's reactive rather than proactive. So maybe we need to. We don't need a slogan, to be honest. And
I'm also going on a negative side again. Sorry for being this one, but a lot of what we are aiming to is for, from the river to the sea, to be considered something like Heil Hitler, something that you can't say. And if I'll succeed with this one, then I think that this is a major accomplishment, because sometimes I can't have something of my own because it's very reactive and it won't necessarily succeed. But sometimes I can destroy. I try not to do it. It's against my instincts. It's against what I was brought on as a Jewish person and as an Israeli. I think that's why we got to where we got as a nation. But, as I said, war is war. So.
Yep. No, definitely. Jesse, I see that you're asking if our website has any security or login issues. Otherwise, we're exposing our plans to the enemy. I have to say, I think we're past that. And I'm not worried about if our enemy knows, then good luck to them, that they're already slightly ahead of us. And I'm not too concerned about them seeing what we're planning on doing. They clearly are very confident in what they're doing. By the way, I think that a lot of people need to recognize that there is what happened on October 7th on the ground happened virtually as well. So Hamas has been preparing this for over a year, and it happened online. It's not by chance that even before Israel went into Gaza, there was a massive protest already in London. These things were dormant, and they picked them up on October 7th and from those days after. There's bots. There's a lot of hacking going on, a lot of stuff that we have no control over. So we have to, I laugh with Elan, we sort of say we're like partisans, right? We're back to the time when, there was no Israel, there was no army, and we have to act as partisans. We're just going to do the best we can in the circumstances. A lot of it has to do with regulation of social media and things like that we don't have control over. And unfortunately, I think that this is a much bigger story than just the Jews and Israel. This is a global story of what happened with social media and how it went completely off. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, there's a question here about Hasbara. And I'm going to, Yair says, perhaps we should change the terminology for explanation, Hasbara, to clarification, Habhara. We don't have to explain ourselves. We need to clarify to the world what happened and is happening here. And I'm smiling, and Eli is smiling because, as I said in the beginning, we all hate the word. We don't think it's needed. None of it is needed. But I'm going to let Ella do her thing because she loves talking about it. So I'm going to let her say it the way she wants to say it.
Yeah. So I'm talking from, Hebrew is my mother's tongue. So from my perspective, as somebody who speaks the language, so Hasbara is really the act of explaining in Hebrew. And I ask you, when do you need to give explanations in your day-to-day life? Where, you're in a defense. You need to explain why you did something. Maybe somebody thinks you did something wrong. And I think the whole terminology affects the way you act and the things you say. And I want to offer a change to that idea, terminology, to maybe influence because I don't want to explain myself. Also, explaining is some sort of a reaction, and I don't want to be the person who reacts and, you know, giving explanations. I want to be the person that creates the narrative, that sets the agenda. And I think influence, in my opinion, is a better word in that sense, because that's what we're aiming for. We want to create real influence, real impact in that sense. So
Yeah,
these are my two.
that feeds into my speciality, which is country branding, where countries try to influence potential target audiences to come as visitors or invest in them as in business or make aliyah or things like that. All of that is based on the ability to be attractive and relevant to the audiences that you want to impact. And influence is key to that. No country explains itself, basically, unless they're in a bit of a situation where they need to, just like a corporate or whatever. So the terminology that I use is crisis management. We are a country that is in consistent crisis, but it's our job to define when that crisis is over and go back to promoting and marketing and branding ourselves. I'm hoping that that will be very shortly. We have to understand that if we are the ones who continue talking about Israel from the perspective of the conflict in 2, 3, 6, 10 months from now, when the world has moved on, okay, they've moved on, especially young people, they're going to move on soon. I can see in the polls that Gen Z, they were above average in terms of how much they're following the conflict. And now every month it's going down, okay? So we need to understand that we are the ones who are responsible. If we want to set the agenda, we can start talking about other stuff as well. But I absolutely agree with Ella that it's about influence. We all want to be influential. And the way to influence is to define the narrative, not to be responsive to it. Gen Z, Jesse says Gen Z has built-in ADHD. It's very true. We all do, really. Yair, yes, Yair has raised his hand. And so because he's raised his hand and it's 5 minutes to the end, I'm going to let him open his microphone and ask a question.
Thank you, Joanna. It seems to me that there's a lot of focus, mainly on the Western world. And while I do understand why we need the Western world on our side, US, Europe, and other places, I wonder how much work is being done in other parts of the world. Because I do believe that there are many other countries of the world who are really clueless of the situation. Maybe the biggest one, which I think we can do a lot of work with, is India. At the end of the day, as Ella already said, a guy like Hinkle, he posts something and then he gets thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of responses. And at the end, I think we understand that quantity also has a lot of power. When you have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Muslims around the world who are supporting one side, that has a lot of power. So where can we find the equivalent that will be on our side? And I think a country like India is a great ally to Israel, where if we know how to work and do the work there, instead of focusing only on those who we know that are already or not on our side, let's go to those who are,
can get on our side. Yeah.
That can be on our side. I think there's a lot of work that can be done there.
All right.
As part of a
great
strategy.
Yeah, so
Ella, you answer and then I'll also give an answer.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. We have a community of Indians and Israelis that we're running, that they help us a lot on social media, and we also help them, and we create content for them, and we work with them, and we already have very vast relations that we've developed over the last 4 months. We also built something of that sort in Eastern Europe, with our allies in Eastern Europe, Czech Republic and Poland. We are working on, we're forming a group of indigenous peoples of the Middle East with Kurds and Yazidis and Jews and exiles, Iranian exiles, that it's I like the word indigenous. You know, they're calling us colonizers, and that will make a lot of people cry. So we're also building these things. I completely agree with you. I must say that there is more of an importance with the Western world. Again, as I've said, you are right, but let's just set the facts straight. There's two X's in this world. There's the Western one, and there's the anti-Western one. Israel is part of the Western world, and when people in the Western world go against Israel, that has influence over their leaders and makes it hard for them to support Israel. And if I'm looking 10, 20, 30 years ahead, these people will get into Congress, they will be in the parliaments, they will be in the next prime minister, or they will be the next president, and it won't be that clear to them that Israel is an ally. And I think this is ultra dangerous, and therefore Western societies are, for me, in top priority. It doesn't contradict, and as much as I will get more money and more manpower, I will expand, but Western allies are the most important ones. China and Russia and Iran are trying to, you know, eat us from the inside with TikTok and anti-Western values and anti-American values and anti-Israeli values and anti-liberal values. And I think all of us Westerners should unite around that. So this is more or less how I perceive that.
It's a great way to kind of summarize as well, because it goes back to one of the reasons that we as a war room exist is to try and provide some strategic guidance. And our strategic guidance is that right now, for the purposes of the war, we need the support pretty much of one person, and that's Biden. Okay, because without Biden, we actually can't win the war. Without the American administration, we won't have the fuel, we won't have the ammunition, we won't have the diplomatic support. You know, it's helpful that there's Germany and France involved as well, but in the end, it's America that's the country that is really supporting and standing by Israel's side, and they are setting the tone for everybody else. And so for the purposes of the war right now, we definitely need America and sort of Western Europe on our side. I like what you said about getting support from Indians in order to boost the numbers online. I think that's a really smart way of looking at it. So it's great that there's some effort going into that space as well. And we know that Indians are quite supportive of Israel to begin with, which was a really nice, interesting way of looking at it. And another thing that has been written here is LinkedIn. I highly recommend LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a space where you can impact those people who are just the onlookers, and they're not young kids, and facts do matter, and information is important, and they are a little deeper. The average age on or the biggest age on LinkedIn is 30 to 39. Okay, and that's the space that we can make a difference. They're the ones who go out to vote and so on. So be very active there. Lena Lampert has a very active and successful LinkedIn account. You can follow her and so on and so forth. So I'm going to close it up here because we're right on time, and we like, let's not be Israeli right now. And thank everyone. Really, really appreciate it. And we will put everything out there. Malkiela's put the post. As I said, it will be on Hasbara, toolbox.com. I don't know if Malkiela, you put it in there, but go to that website. Everything will be on there. Ella, thank you so, so much. You're doing an amazing, amazing job. Really, keep it going. Your heart is in the right place, and I think that that's what matters, and I think that's why you're so passionate, but you're also using your brain, which is very nice. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. We have, it's going to be in Hebrew, but it's one of the leading companies in the field of storytelling is going to be helping us with how to do great storytelling. The week after, we have a representative from the government ministry, which will tell us how the other side, how the BDS works, but not the nice soft BDS that we thought existed, but the rather aggressive one below the line, and show us how they do what they do, so that maybe we can learn a thing or two about how we can do what we do. So thank you very much to everybody, and hope for better days is the only way I can think of ending it. Toda rabah.
Toda. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ella. Thank you, Joanna. Have a great week. Bye-bye.